During the Nazi regime, how were serial killers dealt with? Now we're going to go over PaulOgorzow.
Ladies and gentlemen of all ages, boys and girls, thank you for tuning in to yet another episode of Angry Meat Production. We appreciate you coming in and letting us be a part of your lives week in and week out. We hope to do our best to present you with something that your eardrums delight in. Whether you're looking at us on YouTube or Rumble, or listening to us on Spotify, Google, or Anchor, or any of the other podcast services that we are currently on or trying to get on. We thank you. And if you don't mind, at the end of every episode, stop by, leave us a comment, leave us a like. If it asks for 5 stars, we'll take 5 stars, even if you don't like us. 5 stars are what it's all about. With that being said, we hope you enjoy our attempt to make our advocation our vocation. Ladies and gentlemen, let the games begin.
Welcome, Angry Faithful. Yes, we're going to go over another German serial killer since we have a German audience now. Let's see if we can go with this. This is kind of interesting because it was during the Nazi party during that time frame. Now, saying that, it actually did get a little weird to the point to where let me get his name is really weird.
PaulOgorzow.
But yeah, let's get into it. PaulOgorzow was born September 29th, 1912 in a village of Muntun. I'm gonna speak it. All these German ones, I'm gonna speak and spell these things.
Mundoin.
East Persia in the German Empire, present day in Montoin, Poland. The illegitimate child of Maurice Saga, a farm worker. Saga's father later filled out his new grandson's birth certificate, marking with 3 crosses and the child's birth name, Paul Saga. In 1924, the now 12-year-old Paul Saga was adopted by John Ogorzow, a farmer in Havelin. He would eventually take his adopted father's surname as his own. Ogorzow was initially employed as a laborer on a farm in a village of Neuen, and later worked as a steel foundry in I'm messing this whole thing up. We're going to speak and sell this one. Oh, gotta get that. There we go.
Brandenburger den Havel.
Brandenburger den Havel. I probably still fucked that up. Before ultimately settling in Berlin. In his adult life, Ogorzow. Okay, sorry. It's kind of a weird name. Ogorzow joined the Nazi Party in 1931 at the age of 18, and the following year became a member of the paramilitary branch, the Sturmbürger.
Sturmabteilung.
I totally butchered that. Sturmabteilung. After the Nazi seizure of power in 1933, he rose modestly in the party's ranks, and by the time his capture, Ogorzow held the title of squad leader. I'll just say squad leader. It's Schärfer Führer. I know that much. I know the Führer part. Everybody knows Führer part.
Scharführer.
In the SA. In 1934, Ogorzow was hired as a layer by National Railroad, Dusch Rauschebahn, which ran in Berlin S-Bahn. I think it's S-Bahn. Let me get this because we're going to be saying this a lot.
S-Bahn.
S-Bahn. He steadily worked his way up through the organization and eventually becoming an assistant signalman at Runzenberg Depot in the eastern suburb of Berlin, close to Karlsburst.
Karlshorst.
Karhorst. Yeah. This was the area most his crimes later occurred. In 1937, Ogorzow married Gertrude Zingerman, a saleswoman 2 years older than himself. They had 2 children, a son and a daughter. Initially, they lived with Ogorozow's mother in the working class section of Berlin with numerous adultmen, apartments, blocks, and tenement stacks. The family later moved into another apartment in the suburbs of Kellerhorst, near to where Ogorzow worked. He was often seen playing with his children, spending a lot of time in the garden and tending to a small cherry orchard in the backyard. At his trial, Zinnerman gave evidence that he'd often become violent and abusive and obsessive, making unfounded claims that his wife was being unfaithful. Ogorzow traveled to his job on the rail sources daily, either by train, on foot, or by bicycle. He generally well regarded by his railway co-workers and considered reliable and highly competitive, often operating both the light signals and the telegraph simultaneously. Although he generally worked in and around signal boxes at Zernberg, this is a weird. Okay, hold on. Yeah.
Street.
Where VNK Railway met the S-Bahn. He was often dispatched to work various locations along S-Bahn, always wearing his uniform. His earlier crimes after his capture, Ogorzow intentionally detailed his various criminal activities to police, allowing more prestigious recognition of his crimes. In the last August 1939, while he and his family were residing in Karlshorst, Ogorzow embarked on a series of violent attacks, randomly assaulting and raping dozens of women in and around the Fredericksfield. Fredericksfield district. At the time, his neighbors populated mostly by solitary housewives whose husband has been called upon before World War II. It was various women who initially served as Ogorozow's primary source of victims, and police documented 31 separated cases of rape and other sexual assaults that, according to entitlement and treatment areas, all from which were later connected to Ogorzow. During his attack, he either choked his victims, threatened them with a knife, or bludgeoned them. And in the statement, all the victims mentioned their attacker railway workers' uniform. Ogorozow's first attempt to murder some of his victims during this time, but his initial attempt was unsuccessful. Between the August 1939 and 1940, Ogorzow attacked and stabbed 3 different women, all of whom recovered and later served as witnesses against him. In August 1940, he savagely bludgeoned another woman after raping her on board the S-Bahn. She survived only because after she lost consciousness, Ogorzow mistakenly thought she had died. Another failed effort in September resulted in the victim surviving not only an attempt strangulation, but also being thrown from a moving train by Ogorzow. He suffered another setback. Rushed to her aid after she screamed for help. Ogorzow managed to escape after being severely beaten. She was able to manage to escape after being severely beaten. In light of the close call, Ogorzow changed his modus de grande operandi This actually comes up a lot, and I keep on forgetting how to.
Modus operandi.
Modus operandi. It's just a big word to say he changed his habits. And a new approach was more successful. Ogorzow renewed his series of attacks in October 1940, focused primarily on 9-kilometer stretch of S-Bahn between the Rosenberg train yard and the Frederick. Yeah, I already did this one. We're gonna have to do it again. Oh, let's get this.
Friedrichshagen.
Friedrichshagen Railway. Sorry. Where was I? Oh, okay. Okay. Found it. Friedrichshagen station. Wearing his work uniform, Ogorzow lurked about in carriages waiting for potential victims as the train's passenger car were not illuminated at the time because of the wartime blackout of Berlin. He relied heavily on the fact that lone female passengers were not suspicious on the uniformed employee of the S-Bahn approaching him. Apparently, to ask for their ticket. Once the women were distracted, Ogorzow attacked, strangled, or struck the victim in the head with a 2-inch thick piece of lead encased telephone cable. He committed his first murder on October 4th, 1940. Now, on this is how they get so descriptive on this. I guess he knew exactly when he actually did his first crime. Going on to a pretext of the trust of the home of the 20-year-old mother of two, Gertrude Grada Ditter, whose husband Arthur was away in the military and stabbed her to death. 2 months later, on the evening of December 4th, he killed two more women. He crushed her skull with the S-Bahn passenger. He definitely franked with the iron bar. Let me get her name right.
Alfred Frankie.
Alfred Frankie. He did this with the iron bar before hauling her corpse off the moving train. And less than an hour later, met 19-year-old Ingrid Friese on the street as she was walking home and raped her before also bludgeoning her to death. On December 22nd, railway workers discovered the body of the fourth victim, Elizabeth Bergen, discarded alongside the railroad tracks. Medical exam determined she had died as a result of a fractured skull. 6 days later, on December 28th, 1940, the police recovered Gertrude Sturt the morning after she was assaulted and thrown from the train and by I'm gonna have to do it again.
Ogorzow.
Ogorzow. Yeah, his name is just really weird. Suffering an explosion and various life-threatening traumas, Stewart was rushed to the hospital where she eventually died of injuries the following day. That scene repeated itself on January 5th, 1941, when the unconscious body of Hedwig Urgeber, who 5 months pregnant, was located near S-Bahn. Ogorzow, I fucked his name up already.
Ogorzow.
Ogorzow was unsuccessfully attempted to strangle Egsber before throwing her from the train alive. Like Stewart, others come to her injuries later at the day of the hospital, where she never regained consciousness. February 11th, the remaining Ogorzow seventh victim, Joanna Vock, a pregnant mother of three who found an autopsy autopsy later confirmed that the suspect that Vogt had died of being repeatedly blows to the head and injuries sustained after being thrown from the train. Given obvious similarities to the various crime, all 7 deaths were deemed to be the work of the same person. During the investigation, this is the really weird part. Two of Ogorzo's previous victims who survived being raped and thrown from the S-Bahn were able to describe the attacker and murder attempt, but confronting to the police that his Senate was a railway employee in a black uniform by 1940, as other similarity crimes were already being reported. Sorry. The police began looking for a suspect matching Ogorzo's description. However, all domestic news coverage at the time was either controlled or heavily censored by the various agencies of the Nazi government. This is where it gets weird. If more information was put out, they probably could have found him faster. But because of the Ministry of Public Enlightenment and Propaganda under Joseph Goebbels, the Nazi Party's primary censorship authority, was issued a directive to German journalists regarding the limits of placement of coverage of the S-Bahn murders. The homicide unit of Berlin police under the SS Humfesser. SS Humfesser? Hold on.
Hauptsternführer.
Sternfer. Hamluke was not able to publicly seek information about the rapes or the murders, or to warn the populace about the dangers of traveling by railways at night. Instead, Luken sent out his best detectives to discreetly deal with the case. The police operation was underway in December 1940. With 5,000 of Berlin's 8,000 railway workers investigated, and the police patrols were doubled on the S-Bahn section. The Nazi Party dispatched functions to personally protect unoccupied women who was commuting through the area. Police officers disguised as females and female detectives were used to bait onboard second-class carriage in an attempt to catch the killer. Other detectives were disguised as railway workers, and commuters were watched at each station. Ogorzow volunteered for the job, escorting solitary women during the night hours. Oh my God, that's literally asking the wolf to watch the hen house. Jesus Lord, that is messed up. Despite its effort, I'm going to have to speak and spell this. This is another German word. I am not a speaker of German.
Kriminalpolizei.
Multiparaceli. Okay. Didn't catch more of a handful of petty criminals unrelated to the case. However, the increased police attention did prompt Ogorzow to become cautiously inactive for the nearly 5 months following his murder of Vought in February 1941. He did not emerge until July 3rd, 1941, when he claimed his 8th and final victim, 35-year-old Frida Korzola. She was raped and then bludgeoned to death in the same Fritchfield area where Ogorzow began his wave of sex crimes 2 years before. Ogorzow, who often made Miss Orgasm. Hold on. I tried to figure out what this word was. I know what it is. It's a hatred of. Hold on.
Misogynistic.
Oh, misogynistic. Basically, his hatred and contempt or prejudice against women in the form of sexism that is used to keep women at a lower social status than men. Commented to his co-workers and talked often at his frustration with killing. Was eventually singled out by investigators looking at potential suspects among the railway employees following the murder of Korzow. The co-worker reported to police that Ogorzow often climbed over the fence of the railway depot during the work hours. Ogorzow explained was that he sneaked out to meet his mistress, whose husband was away into the military. Husband was in the military. Lucan personally inspected Orgozow's railway uniform, all which had numerous blood stains. Ogorzow was arrested by Pelosi. We'll just go with the police on July 12th, 1941, in an intimidating interrogation in a small room underneath one single light. So it was basically the verbatim of interrogation, which we all see in the movies. Ogorzow was confronted with one of his severely injured victims and a tray of skulls from several other victims. In the police's summary of the case submitted in July 17th, Ogorzow and Moses were listed as an excessive sex drive, sexual attracted to his victim's resistance, and pathological hatred towards women. Now, this is, and it is not funny, but it's kind of funny. And this is just a signet of the time. Ogorzow willing confession of his crimes to Luca, but blamed his murder spree on alcoholism. Alcoholism. He was alcoholic. There we go. And claimed that his Jewish doctor was treating him incompletely for gonorrhea. So it was during that time frame, it was the Jews. It wasn't the Jews. He was just being a Nazi. A true Nazi, actually. Not a fake Nazi, how a lot of people like to say nowadays. Ogorzow was formally expelled from the Nazi Party just days prior to his indictment for murder and subsequently pleaded guilt to 8 murders. Now, on this, how fucking horrible do you have to be to get kicked out of the Nazi Party? I mean, they killed 6 million Jews. And this guy was like, the whole reason why he was probably kicked out is because he was killing Germans. And there's even a section of violent criminals that they had in the SS that, I mean, the Nazis were pissed off that were doing horrible war crimes, and they did do horrible war crimes. But they still let him go because they were getting the job done. And because he was going after actual German women, they kicked him out of the German Nazi Party. I guess the Nazis had somewhat hard, I guess. He promptly was sentenced to death on July 24th by the Berlin Kreminsk, a regional Supreme Court, in the proceedings of 8 witnesses. The final charges against him were of criminal violence. Ogorzow was declared the enemy of the people by the Nazi regime and executed by guillotine. Once again, another victim to the guillotine. And the prison in July 26, 1941, 2 days after his sentence. After the war, we won't get into that. One of the investigators was Gregory. Let me get his name right, because
Georg Heuser
was charged with by the West German courts with the role portraying or
Einsatzgruppen
atrocity in the Soviet Union. He was found guilty of being associated with 11,000 murderers and sentenced to 15 years in prison, and he only served 6 before being released. He eventually died in 1989. It was just something extra they put on this thing. But and also his like impact of World War II in the Nazi society. And you could go like heavily on Nazi regime and everything that happened. You can make your own podcast talking about World War II or World War I also. But World War II, it's heavily documented. The reason why we even mentioned the Nazi Party in this one is because he was part of it. Now, just to show you of how a person can possibly get away with the crimes during this time frame, is because all this stuff was heavily regulated. to the point where they weren't even covering the murders. They were just saying, "Oh, this is happening. We're investigating." That's it, and not the brutality of it. I mean, yes, we have news organizations that actually somewhat report the news. A lot of it's going through podcasts nowadays. So, which most of the information we're getting nowadays is, funny enough, more or less like the Daily Show, which is really really funny. But back then, the Daily Show was a popular comedian. It was supposed to be a comedy, but they're actually reporting news happening, like political. Sorry, talking too much and water my mouth. But they actually had like political people on there. I think Obama was on there at one point in time. But I know Hillary was on there. But it was really sad that the fact that most of our news is actually being done by comedians. And I'm not saying anything against comedians. I listen to Joe Rogan all the time. And I get information off of that podcast a lot because he actually has people that have intelligent people that have written books. Neil deGrasse Tyson. Sometimes he's wrong. Sometimes he's right. Sometimes he speaks too soon. Sometimes but he's still a brilliant man. I will not dog that man for being the brilliance that he is. Now, saying that, I mean, we're human. We make mistakes. But during this time frame, news organization, I mean, they literally it was called the Enlightenment and Propaganda Department. They were literally telling people, it's like, oh, we're basically telling you what we think you should know. It's basically what's happening now. And a lot of people aren't buying it because we have a lot of people are buying it. It's that whole 12% rule. 12%, just to let you know, 12% rule is a percentage of the society that is mentally, I'll say it the nicest way, mentally incapable of retaining knowledge. And this is actually was it Munson's Morons? And yes, this is the actual, you can look this up. Maybe one day I'll cover it. And it's not a sociopath thing. It's just something interesting I found out. Munson's Morons. And I believe that's right. Let me double check on this. I think it's totally right. Let me see here. No. Yeah, I'm not seeing it. But anyways, I probably got it totally wrong. I'll do an episode on that because it's actually pretty interesting. And it's not a psychos and sociopath. It's just something really weird that I found out through my research. And it was a Vietnam squad that they developed, and these people's IQ is like below 80. And they found out that you cannot you can get them to do repetitive work, but something for combat because of the stress and the automatic switching that you would have to do. And you'd have to like focus and everything. They couldn't get them to do that. So what they found out, and this is through the Marine Corps, that you cannot get anybody to do infantry work or do like studies and everything. A person that is IQ is 80. And our society is built, not our society is built, but our society has 12%. No matter what 12% in the United States, 12% in Canada, Mexico, it's always 12%. 12% of our society is technically unable to think. So I don't know why I brought that up again. I got confused trying to research that stuff. But anyways, everyone, a little bit of extra knowledge this week. I'm sorry about that. Check us out on all of the, I guess, social stuff. I mean, we're pretty much on everything nowadays, which is actually Pretty neat. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for watching if you're watching. And goodbye.